there is one thing that I hear from fans of the Zelda series over and over again. Whenever I start asking about what new features they want in the next Zelda game, I always hear that people want a playable Zelda. It makes sense. She is the namesake of the franchise, and she makes an appearance in almost every game. However, I disagree with this stance. I think making Zelda a playable character would be a huge mistake in the franchise as it stands. This boils down to one important point. Zelda is boring. I would like to point out right now that this video is not meant to attack people who would like Zelda as a playable character. I think it's a great idea and could result in some very fun and unique gameplay experiences. My objective is to critique how Zelda has been portrayed up to this point in the series. I would argue that in 15 out of the 20 games in the series, Zelda could be completely replaced by a hamburger. If Link was really hungry and Zelda was a hamburger, the plot of the game would be the exact same. I think the place that this is most apparent is earlier in the games. Most of the early games in the franchise suffer from damsel in distress syndrome. The only role Zelda plays in the first 3 games is to be rescued. Zelda on the NES isn't even introduced when you start the game. In fact, if you didn't read the title scroll, there's a really good chance you get jump scared at the end of the game when there's a princess waiting for you after you defeat Ganon. Now imagine that you do read the title scroll and you learn that Zelda has been kidnapped and you need to save her. This motivation could be completely replaced if Link was really hungry and Ganon stole his hamburger at lunch. The first Zelda game dehumanizes Zelda to the point that she has been transformed into a MacGuffin. She might as well be the star at the end of a Mario level with how much plot relevance she has. I know it's easy to point back at decisions made in the 80s and laugh about how backward they were. It's easy to get up on a high horse given the age that I grew up in, which is far more open-minded and inclusive than most previous points in history. That being said, I would not be making this video if it stopped in the 80s. In fact, let's skip over the 90s and let's take a stop at Skyward Sword. This is a game that was praised for its characterization of Zelda. There are many people I know that still claim that this Zelda is their favorite. She acts like a real person and she has a real, meaningful relationship with Link. But she's still a hamburger. The game would have played out the exact same way if it had just been a hamburger that blew beneath the clouds and Link was just really hungry. Zelda, after years and years of games, is still being treated like a prize for Link to get once the game is done. Zelda does one important thing in the entire game. She helps create the true Master Sword. This is beyond me, since they were originally planning on using the Triforce to eradicate Demise. The plot of this game just frustrates me. Yes, she acts and talks like a human. She even reveals a huge plan to Link to stop Demise, but none of it really matters to Link. The only reason he is involved is for Zelda. I genuinely feel like this cheapens not only the character of Zelda, but also the character of Link. We are supposed to believe that Link is a character that is pure of heart. His soul is balanced between power, wisdom, and courage. This is the man that could wield the Triforce and use it for the betterment of humanity, but his motivations are frequently distilled to wanting to save a single person. It is not often that we are given a demonstration that Link sees past his own selfish desires. He just wants a hamburger, and he's willing to do anything to get to it. Well, that's enough negativity for one day. It's only fair that we now look at the games that use Zelda in a meaningful way. The first game that comes to mind when I think of Zelda, who is significant to the plot, is Tetra from Wind Waker. She's not only the one who instigated the plot, but she frequently is allowed to show just how capable she is. She acts as the guide for Link when he goes to retrieve his sister from the Forsaken Fortress. She stalls long enough for Link to obtain all of the pearls. She rescues Link's sister for him so he can face off against Ganondorf. Then she saves Link's life when he is unable to defeat Ganondorf. The only downside to Tetra is that she gets shelved halfway through the game. Personally, I think that finding out that you're a princess of legend and obtaining the full might of a piece of the Triforce would make you more of a threat to Ganondorf. But instead they hide her in a cave to inevitably get kidnapped. That being said, I think that this statue is a good sign that Zelda did not go down without a fight before getting kidnapped. When we are finally reunited with Zelda at the end of the game, it is the first time in the series that Zelda helps us with combat. This is very fitting for Tetra, who is undoubtedly very well versed in combat situations. There are still games that do it better than Wind Waker, though. Ocarina of Time was the first game to do this. Zelda is not a prize for Link to obtain at the end of the game. Instead, they are partners in the process of defeating Ganondorf. Link and Zelda want the same thing. They want peace. They are willing to fight to ensure the safety of their friends and strangers. Zelda is able to come up with a plan on how to defeat Ganondorf and then give Link the resources he needs to execute the plan. While Link is working on things that he is good at, Zelda is allowed to do the same. She keeps watch on Ganondorf and ensures that he is not able to obtain the last piece of the puzzle. She is putting herself at risk the entire game. Unfortunately, their plan doesn't work because, well, they are just kids after all. When Ganondorf makes it to the Sacred Realm and touches the Triforce, this would be the point in any other Zelda game that Princess Zelda hides in a cave or a chrysalis. Zelda, in this game, however, says screw that and just puts on a mask. Instead of becoming less involved to ensure her safety, she becomes significantly more involved, at great risk to her own life. She continues on and saves many people in the process. She gives Link crucial information which allows him to aid her in her efforts. The only downside is that this game trips at the finish line. As soon as Zelda reveals herself, she gets kidnapped and fulfills her role as the damsel in distress. How much cooler would it have been if Ganondorf had challenged both Zelda and Link to face him at his castle? This would have been the perfect opportunity to add that playable Zelda that everyone has been asking for. There could have been 2 sets of puzzles that Link and Zelda need to complete. One which is combat and item focused to highlight Link's strengths, and one that is magic and logic based to highlight Zelda's strengths. Imagine the part of Majora's Mask where Link helps Cafe retrieve his wedding mask. Just upscale it a lot. This would narratively and thematically be satisfying. It would demonstrate the differences between Link and Zelda and showcase why the Triforce chose each of them in turn, while still feeling like a traditional Zelda game. These are Zeldas that had some gameplay significance, but there is one other Zelda that I want to talk about before I finish the video. That is the Zelda from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. You do not see Zelda the entire time you play the game of Breath of the Wild, and when you do see Zelda in Tears of the Kingdom, let's just say she isn't in any state to offer wisdom. Even though she is barely relevant to the majority of gameplay in both the games, this is probably the most selfless and caring Zelda we have seen in the entire series. We see her sacrifice her wants for the greater good of the kingdom throughout all of the memories in Breath of the Wild. She never asked to be the Princess of Legend. She never wanted the responsibility attached to her role. She says so herself while she's talking to Link. Even though this is not what she wanted, she steps up to the plate anyway. She takes full responsibility for her shortcomings and tries to make it better. She sacrifices her life 3 separate times in these games. The first time she makes the ultimate sacrifice is when she is trying to protect Link from the Guardians, and she had no way to know that she would be capable of taking on a single Guardian, much less an entire field's worth of them. She threw herself in front of Link anyway. Then, after saving Link, she makes it straight to Hyrule Castle to stop Calamity Ganon. May I remind you that she has successfully used her sealing power 1 time. In spite of this, she confronts Calamity Ganon and is able to contain the monster to Hyrule Castle. Then, in Tears of the Kingdom, we see Zelda sacrifice herself 1 more time. This time she was fully convinced that she was giving up her mind for eternity. A fate that some could argue is worse than death, because at least we have evidence of an afterlife in The Legend of Zelda. She was willing to give herself to an unending, mindless eternity, all for a chance that Link might be capable of stopping Ganondorf in the future. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom was such a huge departure from the Zelda we have seen so far in the series. She no longer acts as an object to be retrieved by the hero, but is instead the crucial piece that allows Link to be successful. Without Zelda, in Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Spirit Tracks, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom, Link would have failed. The rest can be replaced with hamburgers though. So what does this mean for the series moving forward? Well, I hope to see Zelda fulfilling a crucial role in the endless fight against Demise's curse. I think it could be fun to see her as a playable character, but I hope the developers can do it in a tasteful way. I don't want to see a female version of Link called Zelda. I want to see Zelda. I want a game that allows us to see the difference between Link and Zelda and celebrate it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Can Zelda be replaced by a hamburger like I said, or am I being unfair and reductive to the series at large? If you liked this video, consider subscribing, and if you didn't, subscribe anyway so you can dislike all my future videos too.